Iran did not threaten American soldiers or American bases on Tuesday night. It threatened American companies because the IRGC said Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Palantir are the reason Iranian commanders keep dying. They said American AI and surveillance technology is what tracks Iranian generals for assassination. And they gave those companies until 8 p.m. tonight to leave the Gulf or be destroyed. That is not a metaphor. That is a formal military declaration published through official IRGC state media channels on Tuesday, March 31st, naming 18 specific American corporations, giving a specific time, 8 p.m. Tehran time, Wednesday, April 1st, and ordering their employees to leave their workplaces immediately to preserve their lives. Not eventually, immediately. And ordering residents living within 1 kilometer of every listed company's facilities across every Gulf country to evacuate to safe places. The IRGC has never done this before in this war. For 33 days, the Iranian military's retaliation has focused on military bases, oil terminals, desalination plants, tanker traffic, missile attacks on Israel, and drone strikes on Gulf energy infrastructure. On Tuesday night, Iran crossed a line that no government has publicly crossed in modern warfare. It named the companies that build the technology American soldiers use to find and kill Iranian commanders, and it told them to leave or be destroyed. The companies on that list are not defense contractors operating in a war zone. They are the companies whose apps are on your phone right now. Let us read the full list out loud because the list itself is the story. Cisco, HP, Intel, Oracle, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Meta, IBM, Dell, Palantir, NVIDIA, JP Chase, Tesla, General Electric, Boeing, Spire Solutions, and G42, the Abu Dhabi-based AI firm. 18 companies, 17 American, 1 Emirati. The combined market capitalization of the American companies on that list is somewhere in the range of $10 trillion. These are not obscure defense contractors. These are the companies that employ hundreds of thousands of American workers, that manage your bank account and your retirement fund, that run the cloud infrastructure that hosts the internet, that make the phones and computers and software that American families use every single day. The IRGC published that list and said every single one of these companies has until tonight to evacuate its Gulf operations or face destruction. And the IRGC's justification for why these companies are on a military target list is the most important sentence in this entire story. They said American ICT and AI companies are the main element in designing and tracking terror targets. ICT and AI companies. Information and communications technology, and artificial intelligence. The IRGC is saying that the reason Iranian generals keep getting killed with precision is not that American pilots are exceptionally skilled. It is that American technology companies have built the AI and cloud infrastructure that makes precision targeting possible at a scale and speed no human analyst team could match. The IRGC is not making this up from nowhere. The evidence that AI and cloud computing have fundamentally transformed how this war is being fought is coming from American sources, not Iranian ones. Palantir's chief technology officer described the Iran conflict publicly as the first major war driven by AI. He described advanced tools processing vast data sets to accelerate targeting decisions at speeds and scales that would have been impossible even 5 years ago. The Israeli intelligence system that identified the location of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and every other senior Iranian official killed in the first days of this war runs on AI targeting platforms. Israeli magazine Plus 972 investigated the specific systems used. The Gospel system processes satellite imagery, communications data, and human intelligence from thousands of sources simultaneously to identify buildings and facilities where targets are present. The Lavender system is an AI-powered database that scans massive surveillance datasets, including social relationships, location histories, and digital communications patterns, to identify specific individual targets with a precision no human analyst could achieve manually. The 𝗿𝗺𝗇 system is the most operationally specific of all. It is designed to track identified targets to their private homes, to the exact location where they sleep. According to that investigation, these AI systems helped analyze the cellular and digital communications networks of senior Iranian leaders to identify their precise locations before the February 28th strikes that killed Khamenei, IRGC Commander 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗵, Defense Minister 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗍, and the entire top tier of Iranian military command simultaneously on the first morning of this war, and the cloud infrastructure that processes the data those systems run on, that stores the satellite imagery, that handles the communications intercepts, that runs the algorithms in real time. That infrastructure runs on American tech company platforms: Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud Services, the $1.2 billion Project Nimbus contract that Google and Amazon signed with the Israeli government in 2021 gave Israel, in the words of a UN rapporteur, virtually government-wide access to their cloud and AI technologies. The IRGC read that UN report, and they published a list. Now let us talk about the physical reality of what the IRGC is threatening, because the scale of American tech company investment in the Gulf states that are currently hosting this war is something most Americans have no idea about. Microsoft has committed $15 billion to expanding its operations in the UAE by 2029. That commitment was announced just last year as part of Trump's own Middle East AI partnership push. Amazon has pledged $5 billion to an AI hub in Riyadh. Oracle, Cisco, and NVIDIA announced a partnership with OpenAI to build an AI campus in the UAE. Google and Amazon Web Services are constructing dedicated cloud regions in Saudi Arabia scheduled to launch this year. This is not a future investment pipeline. These are buildings under construction, data centers already operational, offices already staffed, right now in the same Gulf states where Iran has been firing missiles and drones for 33 days. Microsoft Azure has 2 operational data center regions in the UAE, UAE North and UAE Central. Google has a Gulf office presence in Dubai. Amazon had 2 of its UAE data centers directly struck by drones in early March of this war. Bahrain's Amazon facility was damaged by a nearby strike. The IRGC is not threatening abstract corporate investments. It is threatening specific physical buildings containing specific technology infrastructure in specific cities: Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, Doha, where American employees are working right now, and it is telling every resident within 1 kilometer of those buildings to leave. Understanding exactly how the IRGC identified these 18 companies requires understanding Project Nimbus specifically, because it is the single contract that most directly connects American cloud technology to Israeli military operations, and that the IRGC has explicitly cited as justification. Project Nimbus was awarded in 2021 by the Israeli government to Google and Amazon in a joint contract worth $1.2 billion. The project provides Israel with what the UN rapporteur described as core tech infrastructure, including cloud computing, AI, and machine learning services that give the Israeli government virtually government-wide access to these platforms. In practical terms, this means the Israeli Defense Ministry, the Israeli intelligence agencies, and the Israeli Air Force can run their data processing, intelligence analysis, target identification, and operational planning on Google Cloud and Amazon Web Services infrastructure. 4 specific offices belonging to Oracle, IBM, and Google in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Abu Dhabi were singled out by the IRGC-linked Tasnim news agency in a prior threat list published in mid-March because they allegedly provide infrastructure for military entities. The IRGC has been building this case for weeks. Tuesday's deadline is not the first time it has named these companies. It is the first time it has named them with a countdown clock. And when you trace the logic from Project Nimbus through the Israeli AI targeting systems to the deaths of Khamenei, Larijani, 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗵, and more than 40 senior commanders killed in the first operational hours of this war, the IRGC's framing of American tech companies as military participants rather than neutral commercial entities has a coherence that international humanitarian law has never had to address at this scale before. The laws of armed conflict were written for a world where the distinction between military and civilian was geographic and visible. They were not written for a world where a civilian company's cloud servers in Virginia are processing the satellite imagery that guides a missile to a general's bedroom in Tehran. The specific companies on this list that require the most explanation are the ones that seem the furthest from military operations. Tesla. JP Morgan Chase. Why is Tesla on a list of military targets? The IRGC's published statement describes all 18 companies as terrorist spy corporations that have enabled target identification, predictive surveillance, biometric tracking, and battlefield data fusion. For most of the list, that framing, however legally questionable, has a technical logic. Palantir's entire business model is military and intelligence data processing. NVIDIA makes the GPUs that run every AI targeting system in the world. Google has Project Nimbus. Microsoft has Azure government contracts with the U.S. Defense Department and intelligence community. But Tesla sells electric cars. Tesla's Gulf presence consists of showrooms, service centers, and more than 30 supercharger stations across the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. Its CEO, Elon Musk, contributed more than $200 million to Donald Trump's election campaign and maintains a prominent role in the Trump administration as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency. The IRGC's logic appears to be that Musk's political connection to Trump and his role in American political and technological power makes Tesla a legitimate symbolic target even without direct military infrastructure involvement. The 1-kilometer evacuation radius around Tesla supercharger locations in Dubai shopping malls means the IRGC is warning civilians away from some of the most densely populated commercial locations in the Gulf. If Iran follows through on this specific threat and attacks a Tesla supercharger in a Dubai mall, it will be attacking a civilian commercial facility in the middle of a shopping district. That is not a gray area under international humanitarian law. JP Chase's inclusion similarly expands the target set to financial infrastructure, suggesting the IRGC intends to use this threat to pressure American economic activity across the entire Gulf region, not just the technology sector. Boeing and General Electric round out the list with their obvious military-industrial connections. Boeing supplies the fighter aircraft and munitions. GE manufactures the jet engines and military platforms. Together, the 18 companies span technology, AI, financial services, aerospace, and electric vehicles. It is a list designed not just to threaten military-adjacent infrastructure, but to threaten the entire American corporate footprint in the Gulf simultaneously. The precedent this threat sets deserves its own analysis because it goes far beyond this specific war and this specific deadline. What the IRGC has done on Tuesday is publicly articulate a doctrine of technological warfare that no nation-state has previously stated so explicitly. The doctrine is this: civilian technology companies that provide infrastructure enabling precision military strikes are combatants and legitimate military targets. That doctrine, if adopted broadly, and if Iran follows through on it tonight, changes the security calculus of every technology company that has any relationship with any government defense or intelligence contract anywhere in the world. If Microsoft Azure can be targeted because Azure government serves the U.S. Defense Department, then any cloud provider that has any government contract in any country involved in any conflict is a potential target for that conflict's adversaries. The Gulf has attracted hundreds of billions of dollars in technology investment over the past decade, precisely because it was considered a safe, politically neutral commercial environment. The UAE marketed itself as a hub that was friends with everyone. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 is built on the assumption that international corporations will invest in the kingdom without fear of being drawn into regional conflicts. The IRGC's Tuesday announcement punctures that assumption in a way that no amount of Emirati or Saudi diplomatic messaging can fully repair. Because once Iran has publicly stated that American tech companies with Gulf operations are military targets, the insurance underwriters, the corporate boards, the security directors, and the shareholder activists will all have to respond to that precedent regardless of whether Iran fires a single weapon tonight. The State Department response to the IRGC threat tells you everything about how seriously the U.S. government is taking it. On Tuesday, the State Department issued an alert advising all American citizens in Saudi Arabia to shelter in place, citing threats against locations where American citizens gather, including hotels, U.S. businesses, and educational institutions. Shelter in place. Not be aware of elevated risk. Not exercise caution. Shelter in place. That is the language used when a threat is considered credible and imminent, and when the government believes an attack is possible before people can get to a safe location. Amazon was already asking employees at Gulf country offices to work remotely or limit travel to the region following the March 3rd drone strikes on its UAE data centers. Several other tech companies on the list moved to remote work arrangements for Gulf employees before the IRGC's Tuesday announcement. After the announcement, the urgency of those moves increased dramatically. Thousands of American and international employees who work at offices appearing on the IRGC's list spent Tuesday night making decisions about whether to show up to work on Wednesday morning. The IRGC deadline is tonight. And the question of whether Iran follows through on this threat or uses it purely as psychological warfare to disrupt American corporate operations in the Gulf without actually firing a single weapon is the question every security director at every company on that list is trying to answer right now. Here is the strategic logic of the IRGC's pivot to tech company targeting and why it represents a genuinely new phase of this war, regardless of whether Iran follows through tonight. For 33 days, Iran's retaliation strategy has been to impose costs on American military power and on the economic infrastructure of the Gulf states that host American military operations, strike Prince Sultan Air Base and wound American troops, mine Hormuz and cut off 20% of global oil, attack Kuwait's desalination plant, burn a tanker in Dubai Harbor. All of those actions impose costs on the American military and on the economies of American allies. But none of them reach the American private sector directly. None of them threaten American corporate shareholders, American technology executives, American company employees sitting in offices in the Gulf. The IRGC's Tuesday threat changes that calculation entirely. By naming America's most valuable technology companies and threatening their physical infrastructure, Iran is attempting to create a new pressure point that operates entirely outside the purely military and diplomatic channels. It is trying to make American corporations, specifically the corporations that fund American political campaigns, employ American workers across the country, and hold American retirement savings in the form of stock, feel directly threatened by this war. If Microsoft's Gulf data centers get hit tonight, Microsoft shareholders feel it in the pre-market tomorrow morning. Microsoft employees in the Gulf feel it immediately. The American economy feels it in the stock price, in the cloud service disruption, in the war risk insurance costs, and in the confidence of every technology executive who has been betting tens of billions of dollars on the Gulf being safe for AI infrastructure. The IRGC is not just threatening buildings. It is threatening the shareholder value of companies that collectively represent a significant portion of every American's retirement account. And the stock market just had its best single day in nearly a year because Trump said the war might end in 2 weeks. If Iran attacks a Microsoft data center tonight instead of letting that diplomatic signal play out, watch what happens to those market gains in the pre-market session on Thursday morning. There is one company's presence in the Gulf that deserves specific attention because of what it reveals about how intertwined American AI investment and this war have become. G42, the only non-American company on the IRGC's target list, is headquartered in Abu Dhabi. It has positioned itself as the Gulf's flagship AI company. It has signed major partnerships with Microsoft, OpenAI, and NVIDIA. It received $1 billion investment from Microsoft just last year. It was at the center of a U.S. government investigation into its historical ties to Chinese technology firms. The Commerce Department required Microsoft to implement safeguards as a condition of that investment, specifically to prevent Chinese access to advanced AI technology through G42's networks. And it is now on Iran's military target list. The IRGC, including G42, signals something important and specific. It is not only targeting American companies for their American government contracts, it is targeting the entire Gulf AI ecosystem. American companies, their Emirati partners, the AI infrastructure being built in the region as part of Trump's own Middle East technology partnership strategy. Iran is telling the entire global technology industry that the Gulf is no longer a safe investment destination for AI infrastructure if this war continues. That message, delivered through a credible military threat with a specific deadline, is the most significant economic signal Iran has sent since it closed Hormuz. Hormuz closure hits the oil industry and the energy markets. This threat hits the technology industry and the equity markets and the pension funds. And the technology industry is where American household wealth now lives, in ways it never did during the oil crises of the 1970s. Iran also demonstrated on Tuesday that it is already executing on the logic behind this threat even before the 8 p.m. deadline arrived. Iran's military announced Tuesday that it had targeted key communications, telecommunications, and industrial centers in Israel, including facilities of industrial giant Siemens near Ben Gurion International Airport and communications company AT&T in Haifa, Siemens. AT&T, international technology and telecommunications companies with Israeli operations targeted for destruction, not Israeli military bases, not IRGC missile sites. Corporate technology infrastructure. The pivot has already begun. Israel confirmed that air raid sirens sounded in areas near Ben Gurion Airport following those strikes. The IRGC is not simply issuing threats. It is simultaneously executing strikes against the category of target its Tuesday list names. The companies on the Gulf list watched Iran hit Siemens and AT&T in Israel on the same day their Gulf offices received the evacuation warning. That is not an abstract threat. That is a demonstration. Tonight at 8 p.m. Tehran time, the deadline expires. This channel will be watching every development in real time and will cover what happens the moment it happens. The community here has tracked every development in this war from the first hour with more accuracy than most professional analysts and more consistently than most mainstream outlets. Drop a comment right now telling us what you think happens tonight. Does Iran strike a tech company facility? Does this threat accomplish its goal of psychological disruption without a physical attack? Or does something much worse happen in Dubai or Abu Dhabi between now and midnight? Because what happens at 8 p.m. tonight is either the moment this war entered a completely new and irreversible phase, the moment a government first deliberately struck private American corporations as an act of war, or the moment Iran demonstrated that its most dramatic threats are instruments of pressure rather than promises of action. Either answer tells you something critical about what the next 2 weeks of this war look like. And either answer will determine whether the stock market rally built on Trump's 2-week exit promise survives contact with the reality of what Iran is actually doing on the ground. Stay with this channel, because tonight matters.